Welcome everybody to the second episode of The Gray Area here on the DRC, the Dirt Racing Connection, your number one source for internet racing information. This week I think I'd like to talk to everybody about something a little more technical off of the safety side of things. And everybody spends a lot of money over the winter time getting their engines done, sending stuff off to motor builders. So I thought I would just give you a little quick brief overview of how to degree in a camshaft and do it all on your own with very few tools, and show you that it's really not as hard as most of those engine builders make it look. First off, what we're going to need is we're going to need a couple of special tools. This first one we got from Moroso, which is a degree wheel. You need this here. You will also need a dial indicator. It needs approximately about a half an inch of travel because most cams are not any more than a half of an inch overall on your total lift on the camshaft. So this should cover pretty much everybody out there in the market. And we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, now we're back. We got our dial indicator set up over top of our number one piston. We have our degree wheel placed onto the crank. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to identify, or not going to try, but we are going to identify top dead center. I'm going to show you how to get true top dead center, and that's very important that you get true top dead center and that you're not even a degree off when you're doing your profile on your camshaft. I have seen as much as 20 to 30 horsepower just by changing the camshaft 1 degree. So we do want to make sure we do get true top dead center, and this is going to be the first step of our process. With the dial indicator on the top of the number one piston, we're going to bring it up as far as it can go, and we'll just take it up until our dial indicator stops moving, and then we'll zero that on the dial. So there is our 0 on the dial. Then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to come back around here, and we have placed a pointer on the engine block. Now the pointer doesn't need to be anything special. In this instance, we're using nothing more than a piece of a coat hanger wrapped around a bolt, and it's pretty rigid, and we're able to move it around where we need it. So now that we have the highest point on the number one cylinder, we're going to move this degree wheel and put the pointer on 0. Some degree wheels are a little bit different. Some of them may go to 90 and start from 90 and go back to 0 to 90 on this side. This one does a 180 degree swing, and that's not a big deal. You can still figure everything out just fine. So if yours is a little different than this one, that's not a problem. So now that we've got 0 set on our degree wheel, we're going to go back to our dial indicator, and this is the critical step of getting true top dead center. So what we want to do is we want to take the piston down into the bore about another 100 thousandths. I like to say 100 thousandths because that gets us, a little bit out of the realm of anything that might be attached to the bearing. And we're going to go just a little bit past 100 thousandths and rotate the engine back around to 0. If you don't make it right to 0, make sure you go back the other direction and bring it back to 0 on the upswing of the piston. And there is 0. Then we're going to come back around to the degree wheel. And as you notice on here, our pointer is at 14 degrees. So that was our first motion. We're at 14 degrees. Now we're going to check 100 thousandths going the opposite direction. So we want to go back that way. And there is 0. And we're just a little bit past. So now we're going to bring it back to 0 again. And now when we look at the degree wheel, we notice that it is at actually 10, 15, 19 degrees. So what we want to do is we want to split the difference between the 14 and the 19, which is going to put us right about, 16 and a half, 17 degrees. So we'll just move this around. I'm going to just take a guess, and I'm going to move it to 16. What we're going for here is that every time we take the piston to 100 thousandths, we want this degree wheel to read the exact same number. So If we get 16 over here and we go back 100 thousandths to the other side, we want 16 degrees on this side. So we'll check that again. Going slightly past, and then coming back up. Missed it there, so I'm going to go past again, and we're at 0. And over here it looks like we're at 16 and a half. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to move it just a little bit closer to 16. And then we'll check it back the other direction, and we should be dead on going the other way. So there's my 0 again, just a little past 100. Coming back on the upswing. Well, and there we go. As you can see, we got 16 degrees. So now we're at true top dead center. All right. So now we've came this far. We've got the degree wheel set, and the camshaft that you've chosen should have some specific measurements on it, and that's the next thing we're going to go to. The camshaft that we're using in this particular engine is made by Comp Cams, and it has a couple of specific numbers on it. Each cam builder is going to be a little bit different, but this one is telling us that at 50 thousandths of valve lift, that our intake valve should be at 25 degrees before top dead center. So we're going to move our dial indicator over, and then we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We got our dial indicator moved over on top of our #1 cylinder intake lifter. All right, so the next step, what we're going to do is check to see where the cam is located right now, which you should already know that, and we'll get to a few things here after we get this done. But first off, what we're doing is we're going to set the dial indicator up on the lifter, and we're going to zero that out. And what we want to do is we want to get the lifter going to its lowest point in the travel of the cam, and that's going to bottom us out, and then we're going to bring it up to 50 thousandths, because that is the mark that they are wanting us to dial this camshaft into. All right, so we'll rotate our engine around, and just like we did on the top of the cylinder, we're going to rotate until this lifter hits its lowest point. Okay, so we just hit the maximum and it's going down. We're still going. That just showed us our maximum lift, and it's starting to stop right now, and there she is. That's about as close to bottom as you're going to get. So we're going to zero our dial indicator over here. Make sure that that the indicator is at 0 and that we have not touched our pointer or our degree wheel. So now let's take the lifter again through its travel. Went a little bit lower there, so I'm going to correct that. And we're going to rotate some more. Still at 0. I tapped the end there a little bit. Still at 0. Still at 0. And there's a little bit lower spot there, so we're going to correct it again. The key is to get the lowest reading, and that's the bottom of the camshaft. And here we go. It's rotating through, and it's starting to rise off of the lifter now. So what we want to do first is we're going to look at our camshaft, and it's going to give us a measurement for our lobe. And this specific lobe lift is 406 thousandths. So we'll follow it around just to check to make sure that they did everything, you know, the way it's written on the sheet. There's 1, 2, 3, and there's 403. So they're off by a little bit from what they wrote. So what we'll do is make a correction that this lobe lift was 403 thousandths. You do want to keep track of everything that you can. And we'll bring it on back around. Watch the cam as it follows. And we are back at 0. Okay, so now we have our lobe lift. This is a little bit different than what's on the sheet. You just make a document that for your records. It's not a big deal. 3/1000 isn't going to hurt you that much. And then our first reading is going to be at 50/1000 of lift. Now this is where we're actually checking to see that the camshaft has been reinstalled correctly with the proper shims. And that's just to the manufacturer's spec. So we'll rotate this engine around again, and the exhaust valve is starting to close, so the intake is going to start opening, and we'll bring that to 50/1000 of lift. Now, if you do go past 50/1000, make sure that you back the engine off and start over again. You want to get the 50/1000 on the upstroke. Then we'll come down and look at our degree wheel. Our degree wheel says that this camshaft is dialed in at 26 degrees before top dead center, because it is rotating towards the top dead center, and it's calling for 25. We're within a degree. We could, if we wanted, replace the bushing inside the cam, and we could retard the camshaft a little bit. That would bring us back to 25, but at this point in time, this is what we're looking for on this cam, and we have just agreed a camshaft in. Now, during the season, you might find that your engine was lacking a little bit of bottom end. You would like to get it to take off the corners a little bit. You could always just advance that cam a couple of degrees, and that'll move the power band down in the RPM range. Now, you always sacrifice torque for horsepower and horsepower for torque, either way. So it's just another tuning tool that you can use throughout the season to dial in your race car, and hope this saves you a bunch of money and you don't have to send it to an engine builder. That's the key. I'm Brian Gray, and this is the Gray Area.